Hello, and welcome to Empathy in Motion, the power of employee volunteering. My name is Chris Jarvis, I'm with Realized Worth, and today we're going to talk about understanding human motivation. To understand human motivation, we have to look at motivation from a couple different angles. One is to understand there are two types of motivation, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. And there are three levels of motivation, global, contextual, and situational. We'll finally end with understanding probably the most important part of motivation, the WIFM, or what's in it for me. But first, let's ask this question about volunteering, because we've been saying it's awesome. And if it is, then why is it so hard to get people motivated to participate in volunteering or to get ourselves interested in volunteering? What is it about motivation that's so difficult? Let's look at extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is a type of motivation that you're probably already familiar with. It occurs when we are motivated to perform a behavior or engage in an activity to earn a reward or avoid a punishment. One of the most well-known versions of extrinsic motivation is the paycheck or your salary. You may like your job, but you probably wouldn't show up to fulfill your job if you weren't being extrinsically motivated to do so. The paycheck, the salary, that's extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation, on the other hand, involves engaging in a behavior because it is personally rewarding, essentially performing an activity for its own sake rather than desire for some external reward. This speaks to hobbies that we may have or things that we do in our spare time just because we enjoy them. You're intrinsically motivated. Nobody needs to pay you to build little toy trucks, if you build toy trucks. Most people who volunteer for the first time will do so because of an extrinsic motivator, meaning someone invited them to go, and they're going because they're their friend and they owe them that courtesy or the relationship demands it. Maybe a religious leader said, you should go do something in the community, or there's some other extrinsic reason. That's why you are motivated to go volunteer, not necessarily because the task itself is so appealing that you would get involved. So that's extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. Now let's look at the three different levels of motivation and understand the difference. At a global level of motivation, I may ask you a question like, do you like animals? Now, all things being equal, it could be a good day or a bad day, or you may be anywhere in the world. If you like animals, you kind of like animals. And you would answer, sure, I like animals. At a contextual level of motivation, we're bringing some context or specificity to it. If I were to ask you if you like dogs or cats, you may say dogs. Cats are fine, they're animals, and I still like animals. But I prefer dogs. There's some context for that. So when we think about volunteering, we tend to think about loving animals, loving dogs, and that's kind of the end of it. But the fact is, it's the next level of motivation that affects us most when we're making choices about when, where, and if we're actually going to volunteer. And that's the situational level of motivation. At this level, these ideas or opportunities compete with a number of other priorities we may have in our life. Have you ever wondered why you want to go do something and never quite find the time to do it, even though you feel like you want to do it? That's because at the situational level of motivation, you have to prioritize your time. And even though you think something's good to do, you may set it aside because other things have urgently got to be done instead. So, all of this helps us understand why volunteering, when it comes to what motivates us to volunteer, can be very complicated. So what do we do then? How do we build programs or design opportunities that get people out when it's so complicated to think about what may motivate us? That's where the empathy map comes in. And it's also where we begin to look at things from the perspective of the WIFM, or what's in it for me. In this unit, you'll see lots of links or resources that you can look at to understand this concept better, but an empathy map is an opportunity for us to take on the mindset or the point of view of the people who may be participating in the volunteering event itself. We ask questions about what they may see or hear, what they may think and feel, and those two things are not always the same. What they may say and do, again, some differences there to explore. What their pain points are and what their gain points are. By understanding and asking these questions of a specific demographic, we will begin to be able to take on their point of view and understand what would motivate them to come out and participate in this opportunity. We call it a value bundle. A value bundle is taking a number of extrinsic motivators that are already part of a person's life and wrapping them around the opportunity to get involved in this volunteering activity. So you're not just saying you should come and love dogs. You're actually offering them the opportunity to do a lot of things that they want to do anyways. So when we think about synthesizing this empathy map, some practical applications or steps would include asking a group of people involved in organizing events to go through an empathy map process, and at the end, see what did they hear. What stood out in this narrative as you considered what a person saw or heard or thought and felt? How might this influence decision-making around how to design these opportunities or events, and which additional demographics should be considered in the future? Just because you considered one group that may come, you may want to consider other groups that may want to attend as well, and what would appeal to them in terms of that value bundle. Most first-time volunteers will participate based on an extrinsic motivation. Someone asked them to come, or for some other reason. We need to pay attention to that when we design these opportunities. Volunteers will also be influenced by their values, their context, and their situation. So even if they wanted to do something good in their community or to address a specific need, it doesn't mean at the situational level it will be a priority, and we have to understand that. Motivating volunteers to participate requires creating a value bundle, as we discussed. Finally, you want to look at motivation in terms of how it drives participation. So first, start from the perspective of your target participant. Who is it that you're hoping will come out and be a part of the volunteering activity? And what decisions will they be making at that situational level of motivation? And how can you help them make the right decision to come out and be a part of the event? Next, employ empathy in some manner, maybe using the empathy map as we discussed, to learn what values motivate the decision to come out and participate. What other extrinsic motivators could you include in the opportunity to make a compelling case to come out and participate in the volunteering event? And finally, make program decisions based on what's in it for them. What is their point of view? What do people need to get out of the experience in order for it to be rewarding and to make the decision to try it out for the first time in the first place? But these decisions should never be at the expense of the mission, cause, or community itself. And this is how we understand human motivation as it applies to employee volunteering. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you right here next time.